Do you ever wish that you could remember every book that you've read, every journal article you've read, every lecture you've attended, every video that you've watched? Hello there, my name is Frank, and I'm glad that you're here. We often admire fictional characters that have what appears to be a photographic memory or are able to instantly recall some fact or information on demand. But the reality is that our brains are actually made to forget, and these characters are fictional. They don't really exist in the real world. If we did remember everything, we'd actually live a very challenging life. There is actually an affliction called hyperthymesia, where those suffering from it, they do remember all of the events from their life, and it is exceptionally rare and not a great life. Sadly, a more common affliction is to lose our memory as we age, and this affects many more people, and it is a common fear amongst many people as well. So if our brains are made to forget, if we have issues with aging that help us forget, and we do want to try to retain our memories, what are some of the solutions that we can turn to in order to develop habits of learning? Because learning is the process of committing the things we experience and the information we encounter into long-term memory. The saying goes that neurons that fire together wire together, and while memory plays a huge part in learning, it's the learning that creates long-term skills, understanding, and knowledge, and learning is more than just memorization. One of the most common ways for us to support learning is to take notes. Whereas we're processing information, we're being exposed to information, and the idea is that we're going to take all these notes as we're reading books and attending lectures, and that somehow these notes will help us remember, and therefore we'll have learnt the new material. There are hundreds of videos here on YouTube about note-taking apps. I even have some on my own channel about note-taking and note-taking apps. But it's important that you don't confuse the app for the process of learning. You have to understand that in order to learn, you don't just take notes, you have to take effective notes that work to support the learning process. As an example of that, taking just simple notes can actually be detrimental to memorization and learning. As an example, one study published in the Journal of Memory and Cognition demonstrated that by taking simple notes, it gave participants the permission to forget. This article was titled Intentional Forgetting, Note-Taking as a Naturalistic Example. And the ideas of intentional forgetting are really fascinating. I'll link the article down below if you want to check it out for yourself in depth. The article discussed a study in which one group of participants took notes around words that they were told they would have to remember and recall. And another group also was told that they had to remember and recall the words, but they did not take notes. They were told that they just needed to memorize the words. Well, those that took notes did worse on the memory tests. And that might seem counterintuitive. You would think that by taking notes, you'd be in a better position to recall the information that you interacted with. But the reality is that once they wrote those notes down, the brain no longer felt that it was necessary to commit those words into memory. It basically gave the brain permission to forget. But before we give up on note-taking and say that it's not good, it is important to understand that effective note-taking can be a way to support the learning process as long as we don't rely on it solely as the activity or confuse note-taking with learning. Notes support learning, notes are not learning. Notes are not all created equal. So as an example, there's notes, say I take a grocery list. I write down my grocery list. I don't want to commit that to memory. I just want to put that on a note. I want to reference it when I'm at the grocery store. And in fact, this type of note can save me from overtaxing my brain by trying to memorize things that I really don't need to. I actually like these types of notes. But then there are notes that I use as part of a systematic learning process where I'm going to review the note and use it to move memories into long-term skills and abilities. I'm going to use this type of note as leverage for moving informations and skills from working memory into long-term memory, which will allow me to retrieve them when I want them. So what makes an effective learning note in support of learning and long-term memory building? Well, there's a few steps that I believe are really important when it comes to taking effective notes. One, get interested. The first step in any learning activity is to actually be interested in the topic that you want to learn about. Now, if we're doing personal learning, this is easy. We just choose topics that we're interested in. For example, if we're interested in learning about raccoons, we just go and learn about raccoons. If we're a teacher or if we're in a classroom environment where we might not have that innate interest in a topic, then we may need to create that interest by sort of setting a vision of why the learning of that topic will benefit us. From a note-taking standpoint, what we can do is we can create notes that somehow show us the benefits in our lives of knowing this information. We can then use that to build our interest in the topic. An example of this would be if I'm studying a topic such as fitness and health. If I have notes that show images of what good health looks like and the benefits of good health, that's going to make my interest grow in that topic. As a teacher or a trainer, I recommend filling your environment in your classroom with different notes and images around the topic to make it more fun. 2, make notes more fun. So the notes themselves should be fun. When we create a note, once we've established an interest in the topic, either by ourselves or externally, then we want to take notes that engage us so that we'll continue to revisit the topic and we'll revisit the information that we took notes on. By creating engaging notes, we have a visual, audio, and different elements that support the different interaction with those notes, which supports the understanding of the material in a way that resonates with us. If we never revisit our notes, then our notes might as well be just gone. They're no good, they're boring. We might as well not even take notes if they're not exciting and if we don't revisit them. 3, connecting our notes. One of the most powerful ways that we can use notes to help us learn and memorize information to support learning is to connect information together. This is sometimes referred to as concept mapping or mind mapping, but the idea is to understand not just how information exists in isolation, but how that information relates to a larger whole. When I'm speaking to some of my students, when I'm speaking in a class, I'll often use an analogy of bronze, silver, and gold levels of knowledge. For example, learning one topic gives you a bronze level of learning. You've learned one topic. If you learn a second topic, that brings you to the silver level. And if you connect those two topics together, that brings you to the gold level of knowledge. As an example of that, let's say you study data analysis. You've got a great skill, you've learned it, that's great. But then if you learn financial analysis, you have 2 skills. You're at the silver level. And if you learn how to do financial data analysis together, you're at a gold level skill because you've connected knowledge together. As a bit of a learning trick, sometimes I'll begin my note-taking with a concept map or a mind map at the very beginning of the process, and I'll create a framework in advance so that all of my notes have a place to go. 4, interaction and sharing. One of the ways that we commit information to memory by using note systems is to not just let them sit there and be static, but to manipulate them, to move them around, to bunch notes together, to separate them, to add to them, to make one note reference another note, to layer them together. This allows us to start drawing analogies between different subject areas. It allows us to use different learning techniques that are proven, different techniques that are based upon neuroscience, things such as review processes, spaced repetition, creating new content or creation from the material that we've learned, all of which support learning, get those neurons to fire together, get those neurons to wire together. And there are many insights from neuroscience that can help us learn. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more ways that you can use technology to learn and teach more effectively. There's the old saying that to truly understand a topic, you should teach that topic to someone else. It helps them learn, it helps you learn. This is one of the reasons why, if we're ever teaching something, putting students into groups is a very effective way to help them learn. We need to put things together in a way that makes it useful to us and to the learner so that we're actually really synthesizing the knowledge. Now, with all of these in mind, a challenge that I still often see is that students will try to find a purely technical solution for note-taking with different note-taking apps and such without considering these factors that I've just discussed. We may end up spending so much time learning the note-taking system that we don't spend any time learning what it is that we want to learn. So if you're interested in seeing how I break down a book for learning the material in that book and how I take notes to support that learning and to support my research, check out this video here. I'll post it, and you can see how I will use these techniques in order to learn new materials. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this interesting. Comment down below, like, and do all those YouTubey things, and we'll see you in the next video.